Hey guys, appreciate you coming out. Got a quick turnaround here out to State College. Huge challenge, one that I know our team's looking forward to. So I'll try to answer your questions.
Third straight week, you're going up against an elite defense. What do you see from Penn State's defense and what they do so well?
Yeah, you're right. Third week in a row, really, I guess a top 5 defense 3 weeks in a row. It's hard to do, right? I guess 4 and 5 would be the remaining, but they're really good. They're good at all 3 levels. They run as well as any defense I've seen in a long time. Their front runs. Their defensive ends run as well as most teams' safeties. I mean, they really have an unusual group of talent there this year. So, big challenge. Certainly have our hands full. Working hard to try to figure it out.
I guess they're coming off a situation where they just fired their offensive coordinator. Does that change anything that you're doing or look at that situation differently?
I don't really know what we can go off of. You know what I mean? Like, I know all the parties involved, and I've known, I've known Juwan since he was a kid in high school. His daddy was the I believe he was the athletic director at Glade Central High School down in Florida. So, I mean, years and years. They're all good coaches. They'll have a great plan put together, I'm sure. When you look at their personnel, that's what I know. They got 2 elite running backs, really, really good running backs. A very good offensive line with an elite tackle. They have 2 or 3, depending on who's judging, I think, great tight ends. A young quarterback who's as acclaimed as they come, and receivers that are definitely on the up. So, they're a very complete football team. I've said it. I think they have a lot of pieces in place there.
Coach, what do you know about how Kyle Monangai is feeling right now, injury-wise, and how do you feel about how he's?
Yeah, it's early in the week still with all those injuries, bumps and bruises, whatever you want to call them. I think by Saturday, when the availability report comes out, I think we'll have a much better understanding where we are.
Greg, you haven't been afraid to bench quarterbacks in the past, whether it's Ryan Hart, Tom Savage, guys who went on to have great careers here. Is that anything you've considered doing with Gavin, considering some of his struggles the last 2 or 3 weeks? And is that something that can sometimes help a player in the long run of their career?
Don't know about part 2, but part 1, no. That's not something I'm considering.
Greg, it seems like the team's best games this year have been when Gavin was able to be effective running the ball. On Saturday, he wasn't really able to get it going and only kept it a few times. On those inside zones, does Gavin have the autonomy to pull and run if the aggressive end is crashing, or is that decision made pre-snap?
It's interesting that you read that question. That was somewhere from your football 101 or I'm not going to get into how we read plays, Richie. I'll never do that. That would be foolish on my part. You're right. Gavin didn't carry it as much as he has, and in retrospect, maybe we should have. Right? There's a lot of the tough thing where we are right now is, if all of us were together on July 31st and we were hanging out talking, and somebody said, "Okay, it's you're going into the 4th quarter at Kinnick Stadium, and it's 6-0 Iowa. And by the way, you're 6-3. Would you take it? Would you have taken it in July? I would have taken it in July. We are a developmental program. We're developing, for sure. We're going like this. But let's realize who we are. Like, that's one of the biggest things I talk to our team about at Rutgers. And I think, I've been a lot that have been here longer than I have, so I kind of know about this place. I might not know about every place, but I know about this place. And at this place, you really got to stay focused on who you are. See, the way we've played the game has allowed us to be in every single game this year going into the 4th quarter with an opportunity to win. In the past, that wasn't the case. So to me, that's an incremental improvement. I know we'd all love to go from 4-8 to 12-0, but it's just not going to work that way at Rutgers. Maybe somewhere else, but not here. Maybe if you go into free agency, NIL, and get all these players in a swoop because you had a bankroll the size of Detroit, then maybe you turn it. But we don't have that. So we know who we are. I know who we are. And the way we're playing the game right now might not necessarily be the way we play it 2 years from now, when some of these younger players that we think are really promising now are developed and playing at a different level, then we can play the game differently. So everything we do right now, whether it's right or wrong, that can be argued. That's the beautiful thing about sports, right? That's why you guys have jobs. You write stuff, it stirs it up. People want to talk about it. That's how I have a job, because people want to come watch it. But we really think the way we're doing it gives us the best chance to win. It doesn't guarantee us a win. We're not at that point. Hopefully, down the road, we'll be at that point. And that's kind of how we do it. With your question is particularly how we're going to read something out, I would never get into that. But I will say that I do agree with you. When he runs the ball, he's been effective. Nothing was really effective Saturday after the first quarter. The first quarter, we're moving the ball. We just shoot ourselves in the foot with those procedure penalties, and it's not going to be quiet this weekend, right? So it was really loud at Iowa, and guess what? At Beaver Stadium, it gets pretty loud. So we're going to have to get over that and figure out how to operate in the noise, poise in the noise. Long answer.
To that end, well, you kind of answered this question, but do you think in hindsight, you guys were offensively a little conservative against Iowa?
Yeah, I wouldn't say conservative. I'd say that's the plan that we had to win the game. Now, you may on the outside, when it doesn't work and you look back at it retrospectively, it's always easy to look at it after the fact. But going into the game, we felt like that was the way. Again, when I say things, sometimes I think you guys think I'm leading you breadcrumbs somewhere. But I wasn't leading you on breadcrumbs. They were 15-1 in the month of November in the last 4 years. Well, now they're 16-1, right? They have a formula that, quite honestly, we're trying to duplicate in some ways as far as the way we play our football. So, yeah, I'm not going to get into too conservative. That was the way we went into the game planning, and it worked to a degree, but we weren't able to finish the job, so it didn't work. And our defense, we can't do that, leave the defense out there that long, right? But had some of those procedure penalties not happened, I would have liked to see that game. But you know what? You can't live in the ifs and buts world. That's what killed us. Those penalties, absolutely, we're not good enough to overcome them. At some day we may be, but we're not now. Again, know who you are, and the argument could be, do you abandon the plan then after those penalties? I didn't think so. Again, retrospectively, you can argue anything.
With those penalties, I mean, how difficult is it realistically to try and diagnose that during the week and then fix that going into another loud environment? And
I think it's very fixable. I really do. I think that it wasn't just the noise, and I'm not going to get into too many details, but and it was nothing illegal by them. Last time I said something, a lot of people got very excited about it. We did not do a good enough job handling it. I just said poise in the noise. That's what we need to do. And we hadn't experienced it maybe to that degree, but the noise that was on our practice field last week was louder than the noise in Kinnick Stadium. I can tell you, because I was in the middle of it, and I could hear the stuff I needed to hear on Saturday, and on Tuesday and Wednesday I couldn't. So we need to just keep practicing at it again. We're developing. We'll develop how to play in that kind of environment, hopefully in time to get out there in Beaver Stadium and be able to do it.
What did you learn about Ian Strong playing on the road and putting together a pretty nice performance?
Well, I think Ian's performed from the very beginning, right? I mean, it was opening game, I believe he made that tremendous catch, right? Opening game, was it? It was top 10 or number 1 on ESPN, right? So I think he's a really fine athlete. All these freshman guys, let's be real now. It's mid-November. They started training camp in August. Their bodies, minds, everything are not prepared for that, right? That's not what high school's like. So they are all, at some point or another, hitting the wall. And Ian is working his tail off because he's hit the wall. He's got things that are bothering him physically that he's learning. In college, you push through those things. But I was very pleased that he answered the bell when Jaquay went down and showed some great toughness, because he wasn't 100% either out there. I knew he was going to play, but I knew he wasn't 100%.
Coach, now it's been a couple games since you lost Tyreen Powell to an injury. How do you feel about how the linebacker group has stepped up since then, and what do you hope to see out of that group heading into this one?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think, number one, we really miss Tyreen Powell, because he is as complete a football player as we have on our defense. And when you realize that is when you go through the other things he did. He was the adjuster on punt. Then every specialty play that we have built in that you don't see until you see him, right? End-of-game plays, end-of-game offensive plays. Tyreen was on all of those. Why? Because he's 6'5". He's got a tremendous width to him, that he catch radius. So he was on so many things. You don't realize it even as a coach until he's not on him, and you got to replace him on the depth chart in all these different areas. So we certainly miss Tyreen. I think the linebackers have really stepped up. I thought that Dion played maybe his best game Saturday. He really played well. I think Mo is really getting all these more reps, I think, is even getting more advanced. Again, we have to remember that this isn't a position that Mo played for us. This is his first year being a full-time linebacker, and I think he's really developing nicely. So, and then I think, we have some young guys behind them that are close to being ready to go do it in games, and I hope that can take a little bit of load here off those two guys in the last 2 weeks of the season.
I want to touch on something else you said earlier. I think we all agree, 6-3, down 6 points against Iowa fourth quarter. Everyone would have signed up. I think everyone agrees it's a successful season. Do you think, in your view, you guys need to win one of these last 3 games to not dampen that early success? You guys start off 6-2. Do you think getting one more win would help, not solidify the season, but do you know what I mean? Do you think it's important to get a win in these last 3 games to?
So the reason that because I generally don't use any perspective, and I just talk about being 1-0 at the end of this week. The reason that I used the perspective was not to go big picture on you. It was to explain why we're doing things the way we are to give ourselves a chance to win in the fourth quarter. I really don't think anything other than about Penn State. We have to find a way to go into another hostile environment against the top 5 defense and win a game, be 1-0 at the end of it. And how we do that, that's all-encompassing for me. Maybe for some that's not. Some coaches can do a bunch of other things. I heard stories, some coaches go golf and stuff during the week. Like, every waking moment it takes me, and that's not trying to play, woe is me. It's just the way it is with, again, as I tell the players all the time, at Rutgers, you need to know who we are. As a coach here, I need to know who I am.
You left the big picture window open just a little bit, so I figured I tried to.
I would be disappointed if you didn't. So I appreciate the effort. But I closed it as soon as I opened it. I just opened it so you could have a brief glimpse, because this guy over here wanted me to tell him exactly how we read the play, Shows up. I haven't seen him in weeks, and now he wants to know exactly what our read is. I mean, what the Sam Hill? Go ahead.
You threw me off now.
No reading off your laptop
I got it
either.
written down. There's been a lot of talk about accuracy lately. Mike Leach was famous for a lot of things, but one thing in particular, he said that accuracy cannot be taught. My question to you is, how hard is it to teach accuracy?
Well, what is accuracy, right? Like, that to me, to know how to teach it and how to get it, you have to know what exactly you're talking about. So if you're throwing a football, just you and the receiver, that's one thing. If you're throwing the football and a bunch of guys are trying to kill you, that's another thing, right? And that's what, when you line up at quarterback and go to throw a pass, there's a bunch of guys that are trying to knock your head off. So I think there's a difference, right? Technique, though, if drilled enough, you can improve accuracy, but you got to work at it, right? Just like any other technique in doing an athletic skill. And what you work toward is that you get muscle memory, that trained behavior becomes your instinct, and you don't have to think about it. But you throw in that other, so that's what we do with our quarterbacks. We try to grind it into them, the technique needed to be an accurate passer. But then you throw in a very active defense that is trying to get you. I think those are things that have an effect on all that. having said all of that, we need to be more accurate. I've said that. Gavin will say that. We all will say that, right? But in the first quarter, I thought he was really accurate. I thought it was boom, boom, boom. He hit every target. There was some long NFL-style field-out throws that he made. So, you know, it just kind of turned on us a little bit, and with those penalties. And then, you know, like I say to you guys all the time, games take on a life of their own. And maybe you do understand, maybe you don't, but it definitely happens. You might want to call it momentum, call it whatever you want to call it. That's kind of what happened to us, but it's still, with all that being said, the fight that's in this team, it's 6-0 going into the fourth quarter. Just couldn't finish the job. Not yet.
What have you seen from Eric Rogers this season?
Yeah, Eric has been a real nice addition. I think it's a perfect situation for him. Transferring over from Northern Illinois, doesn't have to come in and be the guy, but comes in and is a guy. He's playing. He's in sub packages, but Beeman and Max were the first two guys, and then he kind of works in a rotation with them on normal downs, kind of bop them around in sub packages, and I think he's done a good job. And eventually, he's going to be, you know, he's going to have to elevate to the next step, and I think he's showing signs that he can. So yeah, we're pleased that Eric's decided to join us. Again, guys, I'm only playing with you too, Rich. You know that. I'm glad that you're here, and I appreciate you guys covering us. And I know that all your questions have to be asked. Hopefully I answer them enough. But just remember those freshmen, you know, like you had talked about, Ian Strong, all those freshmen that are actually having an opportunity to play. This is really hard stuff. Right now they're in the middle of academics, which at this place is really tough. So my hat is off to those young guys. Thanks, guys.